All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Today, me and Nick are going to be doing our over-under predictions. We're going to do 3 each for this coming season, our best bets. To get things started, though, Colorado under 3.5 wins. It's got to be lock of the century, Nick. You look at the schedule, you look at the offseason Colorado has had. I just don't see a single win for this team. I do think week 1 versus TCU could be interesting. They play a team that does not have very good defense. But you look at Air Force and Minnesota on the road both. Minnesota beat them 30-0 last year. Air Force, they can grind you down on the ground. Time of possession is everything. That's not very good for a team that was one of the worst nationally last year in passing. They were actually pretty close to the service academies in passing yards per game. That's how bad Brendan Lewis in that passing attack was. First 3 non-conference, those are usually your freebies. I don't see any here in the non-conference. Maybe at Arizona could be something. Maybe hosting Cal. But there's no way this team hits 4 wins this year.
This is a tough schedule out of conference, and when you look at the game against TCU, there's currently 8-point dogs at home to TCU. TCU is traveling to Colorado and an 8-point favorite, which I think is just sort of indicating how terrible this Colorado team is across the board. They lost so much talent in the portal, they lost so much in the offseason, and the schedule, there's no free wins on here, no FCS wins on here. Air Force is going to be a tough game. That service academy, they can grind it out, and especially at Air Force, I think that Colorado's going to lose the game, and I wouldn't be surprised to see a 0 on their win record this year.
I think Ramon Jefferson, the transfer from Sam Houston State, can be great. I was very impressed with his film. I think he's going to be good. Brady Russell at tight end. I think those are 2 key pieces on offense. I think those guys will have good years. I like Robert Barnes to step up on defense, and Isaiah Lewis, he's one of the top safeties in the conference. This is a defense that underachieved significantly last year, almost 27 points per game allowed. And they had some real good talent, too. Nate Landman, Carson Wells. They also had a handful of guys in the secondary who actually transferred out. Mustafa Johnson on the D-line's another one. So these guys, they had so much talent last year. Carl Dorrell could not get anything done with it. I just do not see how this team wins a single game because the defense was so bad despite having some really good ball players, and they lose them all. Just, again, a tough schedule. There's no freebies. Disastrous offseason because they had so many guys transfer. And, again, the forward passing attack was not very good. Do you see Colorado winning a single game? Because I don't.
No, I don't think they're going to win a single game this year because it's just there's nothing on the schedule that I look at and I'm like, yeah, they're going to win that. ESPN FPI only has them ranked, only has them a favorite in one game this year. They're 55% in one game this year. The rest of the games they're predicted to lose according to FPI, and even the game they're predicted to win, which is against Cal, I don't think they're going to beat Cal. I think Cal is going to be a little bit better than a lot of people think this is going to be this year.
Cal, a team that plays tough defense. Looking to a team that's going to win a lot of games this year, though, Nick. South Carolina, over/under is set at 5.5 to 6.5 at some websites. It's a big time offseason for them. Spencer Rattler comes over. Austin Stogner as well. Christian Beal-Smith picked up some very talented pass catchers. This offense is going to be some dynamite this year, and it wasn't so good last year, and they still managed to win 7 games and go above 500 Shane Beamer's first year. That's all you really need to hear. But this is a very tough schedule at the same time. This is still the SEC. The defense needs to continue to progress in the front 7. They have a very talented defensive line, guys like Zach Pickens, Jordan Birch, looking to see them kind of max out their potential this year because they've not been great, former 5 stars. I love Shane Beamer, though. I love this offense. Jaheim Bell, he's going to have a Kyle Pitts type of season, I think. And then Cam Smith leads one of the nation's top secondaries. Devontae Reed from Central Michigan comes over to anchor the safety spot. That's the only position that was vacated in the offseason. Jalen Foster departed, of course. They replaced him, a very productive player. Over 5.5 or 6.5 wins, whatever line you're on either website, I'm taking it with you. This is your pick to win the SEC East, actually.
Right, I picked South Carolina to win the SEC this year, SEC East this year. I think they have a super talented roster. Vegas, put this line a little bit low, in my opinion, maybe because the schedule is tough. I think I can kind of sympathize there a little bit. But across the board, this team is so talented, and Shane Beamer is such a player's coach. People love playing for him. That's why picking up players in the portal was so easy for the South Carolina Gamecocks. He's a player's coach. They absolutely love the energy he brings. I love the energy he brings on social media and on the sidelines. I think he is the next generation of college coach. And Spencer Rattler, this guy was a Heisman frontrunner just at the start of last season, right? And sure, he ended up getting benched. It didn't work out at Oklahoma, but the talent is certainly there. And if he plays with a coach that will be understanding to him and want to get the best out of him, I think this team will be blitzing on offense. I think their defense is very strong as well. One of the nation's top secondaries and a solid defensive line as well. Across the board, I think this team top to bottom is great. And I think that they should easily clear 5, 6 wins, 7 wins, considering they had 7 wins last year. And they'll be contending in the East.
Course, they will have to win some games. They probably won't. We both picked them to beat Arkansas and Georgia, but they could easily lose those games too, So at Kentucky's difficult. You get A&M after that following a bye week. At Florida and at Clemson, and then Tennessee sandwiched in between that in November. So obviously the line makes sense, but the team is much more talented than this. They should definitely clear the 6.5 mark. I see them at worst getting 8 wins, but very easily they could be below that mark, and I would totally understand. So I understand the line 100%, but when you look at the roster and who the coach is, it doesn't make a lot of sense and seems kind of like a lock almost. So South Carolina over 5 or 6.5. We're taking both lines. One I liked here, Penn State under 8.5 wins. This is a really bold line by Vegas, considering this team is kind of shaky. Last year they had one of the nation's worst rushing attacks. They lose Noah Cain, of course. That backfield is not as deep as it once was, and they weren't even that strong to begin with last year, despite having 3 or 4 different options. Sean Clifford, his ceiling seems kind of maxed out. They did add Mitchell Tinsley to pair up with Parker Washington, a very respectable passing offense for this year, but I think they'll be one-dimensional once again. The offensive line should certainly progress. They replace a handful of guys, including Rasheed Walker, so we'll see what happens, but I do anticipate James Franklin will get things going, Mike Yurcich a little bit as well. They'll figure things out on offense a little bit, but how much is the big question. Defense, I love what they got in the secondary. Joey Porter, Jair Brown, those guys are great. But then you look at the front seven, they'll get back P.J. Mustipher at defensive tackle and Curtis Jacobs at linebacker. Very thin linebacking core. The run defense last year really struggled without Mustipher. Obviously, he coming back is big, but it's a new look front seven for the most part. I'm pretty concerned about that unit. And you also look at the schedule, 8.5 seems like a big stretch, and I think that's another lock under for sure.
8.5 is a huge stretch. I think Vegas giving some love to Penn State with the name recognition. I just look at the schedule. At Auburn, that's a tough matchup. At Purdue to open the season on a Thursday night, it's gonna be rocking in West Lafayette. That could be a tough game. At Michigan, at Indiana, these are some tough games as well. They play Ohio State at home. They play Michigan State at home. These are really tough programs in the Big Ten. I just struggle to see over 8.5 wins there. I struggle to see 9 wins anywhere really on the schedule. I can't see it adding up. I think that this is a solid team. I think they're moving in the right direction. I think Franklin's a solid coach for these guys. I just think 6 wins is more appropriate for this season.
I picked them to go 6-6. Penn State fans weren't happy, but I do think this team will bounce back in 2023 and compete for the conference. But this year, it's going to be a down year for Penn State. And there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes it takes you a year or two to get things rolling back in the right direction. So I think Sean Clifford, he's going to have a great year. So the offense. Well, I don't know if they'll have a great year. I think they'll progress pretty good. But overall, this is not a team I think is going to win 9 games. Down year for Penn State. Under 8.5 is the pick. Nick, you went with over 8.5 for Utah. This seems like a gimme. I don't know why this is the mark for them. They play at Florida. They host USC. They play at Oregon. So maybe I could see 3 losses. But there's no way this team doesn't hit 9 wins at least. If they do, it'd be the shock of the year, I'd say. They get Tavion Thomas back along with 7 more starters on offense. They get 2 great tight ends back. Brant Cooley is one of them. The defense, of course, they replace a lot, but they have these young, promising players, guys like Junior Tafuna, Cole Bishop, Muhammad Diabate comes over. They also got some fresh talent at linebacker, so I think they're going to be all right at defense. Offense is obviously, I think they're going to continue to blossom with Cam Rising under center. Over 8.5 seems pretty disrespectful from Vegas. How are you feeling?
I think it's very disrespectful for 8.5 for the team that won the Pac-12 last year and returns a lot of their talent on offense. Yes, they have to replace some holes in the defense, but the guys they have coming up, I love the film on them in the limited bunches, and I think this is a super talented team top to bottom. The schedule is pretty favorable across the board. The Pac-12 isn't the toughest league in the world, and they have a lot of favorable home games as well. I think that they easily clear the 9-win mark. I think this is a super talented team across the board. Tavion Thomas, one of the best running backs in the nation. I love to see what he can do this year. And Cam Rising has sort of blossomed into this star quarterback in the Pac-12 and is one of the better gunslingers in that conference. 9 wins, 10 wins, 11 wins is very achievable for this Utah team.
I wouldn't exactly call Rising a gunslinger, but in terms of a dual threat quarterback that runs the offense well and protects the football, there you go. I'm not going to call him a game manager because he's better than that, but I'm a very good quarterback, and that was his first year starting. The offense had a different spark when he took over, and he'll only continue to get better, as will the entire unit. So, yeah, over 8.5, easy pick there, free cash, it seems like. My final pick is Kansas State, over 6.5. A lot of juice on this year's board. We're only doing 3 each today. I like the Wildcats to compete in the Big 12. This is not a conference that's very strong one bit, but I think Kansas State, despite having limited depth at the skill positions, if these guys can stay healthy, they're going to be great. Deuce Vaughn's paired up with Adrian Martinez. Talk about the speed, the elusiveness. That backfield's loaded this year, Nick, with him and Martinez. Now, if one of them gets hurt, then, we might be seeing something otherwise. But Cooper Beebe is also one of the top tackles in the conference, in the nation, really. They also get Malik Knowles back. They have plenty of speed at receiver. So I think they're going to be okay on offense. They'll get better. That's their bread and butter is to run the ball. Defense, they got back 2 superstars, Daniel Green, Felix Uzoma. This guy, I think, led the nation in forced fumbles. Or he was right behind Isaiah Foskey, I believe. But he was up there in terms of playmaking off the edge. This guy doesn't really win with speed, but he, has a quick burst. Not in terms of speed, but really his get-off is not that quick. But afterwards, he's very fast. He comes in a hurry, and he lays the boom. Daniel Green, he had double-figure tackle for losses last year. Secondary's a little concerning for me. They weren't great last year. They replaced a handful of key guys, but I think overall 7 wins very achievable. I do think they'll be battling there late in the year for a crown.
I love Adrian Martinez coming over. He had a really good career at Nebraska. I think he got a lot of hate that really was undeserved for him. I think he was a super talented quarterback. I love the dual threat ability there. And Deuce Vaughn's a really talented back. I love the speed he possesses. The secondary certainly concerns me, but the rest of the defense is solid. Defensive line, linebacking core are both very solid. I think they should be able to be strong this year. The front 7 is one of the better in the Big 12. I think it's super talented top to bottom. This team should easily get 7 wins. I like the schedule as well. Not too difficult for this Kansas State team. They're a team to watch for sure.
Khaled Duke coming back is big for them on the defensive line as well. And your final pick here, Florida State under 6.5 wins. I picked Florida State earlier in the year, in the offseason, that is, to go 6-6. But I think this team could definitely accomplish more just because of the overall energy it seems like has been put into the program by Mike Norvell. They bring in Jordan Travis. They got Treshaun Ward. Those 2 guys are going to be paired up together. Plenty of speed. These guys are 2 phenomenal runners. I just talked about Kansas State and a potential read option. I'd love to see that at Florida State this year, and I think they will, and that's going to be their bread and butter on offense. They got, a handful of transfers at receiver. They also got some veterans like Keyshawn Hill and Ontario Wilson. I think the offense is going to start to find its mold this year with Mike Norvell. It's not been a great group the last couple of years. They also get back some talented players on defense. Fabian Lovett, Jamie Robinson. They also picked up a nice transfer at linebacker from UCF. So I think this defense and offense, they're all going to make big strides. I still pick them to win 6 games, and you're going under 6.5 as well. But this is one I'd just rather stay away with. Why are you so confident in this pick?
I'm just confident because I feel like Florida State has not really proved to us they can put away games they should be. I look at the game against Jacksonville State in 2021 where they really should have put that FCS program away and absolutely blew it late on. They struggle with discipline on both sides of the ball, a lot of penalties with this team. And when you look at the schedule, it's a tough schedule, playing LSU basically on the road, a neutral site in New Orleans, but that's essentially an LSU home game, at Miami, at NC State, at Louisville. Very tough matchups on the road, a very hard draw for them at home to Clemson, at home to Wake Forest. I think this is a tough schedule top to bottom, and I just don't think I've seen enough from Florida State yet to prove to me that they can get close to 6 wins. I think they're more in the 4 to 5 range this year, and it really is a shame because I do think this is a program heading in the right direction under Mike Norvell, but they haven't really put the pieces yet together. Under 6.5 is an easy pick for me.
They picked up a lot of transfers on both sides. Very interested to see how Jared Verse performs this year. Micah Pittman as well. Maybe even Johnny Wilson at receiver. And then they've did a pretty good job on the recruiting trail as well. So I think things are certainly going up for Florida State. But yeah, that's a solid pick under 6.5. I'd prefer to stay away, but I can totally understand the reasoning because the schedule is pretty tough. Like you said, some pretty tough draws there. They also get Florida. They host them on a Friday night to end the year. That'd be pretty cool to see. So that's going to be it for today's episode, Nick. A lot of juice on the board. It was tough to pick 3. This was fun, though. Hopefully we can do it again sometime soon.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to this season. Some of these picks are definitely a lot of fun to play around with, and some of these teams should easily clear their over marks.
Yeah, I can't wait to look back at this and see which ones we got right, which ones we got wrong, and it should be a fun year. Again, I appreciate you joining me.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.